So thank you very much for giving me a chance to talk to you.
Thank you for coming here, Rokas. It's awesome.
Such a pleasure. So I don't know even where to start. I like, as I said, organic conversations. There's no special aim. There's no special goal. Just exploring whatever you're inspired about. What's your life about? What jiu-jitsu is for you? So maybe one point you mentioned that we could start with the whole traditional martial arts versus I don't even know how to.
Yeah. The way I call them, I kind of call them the reality-based martial arts and the fantasy-based arts, right? That's kind of a two-category thing. And one of the things I like, and maybe it's just how my brain works, is what I call and what I think they call in philosophy the trap of the binary. Right? That either it's good or bad, or it works or it won't work, and or it's ground or stand up. And I really love separating things metaphorically and in actuality in threes, because it lets me step out of my trap of duality, to give a perspective that isn't always accurate, but metaphorically it's often almost a way to, it's a mental vehicle to see more truth. Because I'm one of those guys, and here's where we could say, in a way, I'm a postmodernist, in a way, to a point where I don't even believe postmodernism is valid, right? 100%. And so, philosophically approaching martial arts as there is no 100% truth except in the now, then there is. But the now is an ever-dividing slice of time. And one of the things that I love about the reality arts is they come, I think, from the now, that thin slice outward, whereas the fantasy arts, metaphorically, they come from the outside inward. And I think there is a valid place for story and entertainment in our human lives. I kind of think that's like what gives life, quote unquote, meaning and direction and a purpose, right? So in that sense, I love the fantasy arts. I love them. And loved them as a kid. When you have that magical, dreamlike creativity and all that. And that's kind of my approach on them.
Right. It's like when you said that, I just look, in my mind, remembered all this. It's like, I guess that's a bit of a reflection of that. I mean, there's Batman, there's Star Trek movies, and there's this mix of martial arts and entertainment. That you mentioned that entertainment is like, you see that it's an important part of life.
Yes.
So is that a reflection of like the way the gym is set up?
It is, and sometimes you can blend that, the reality and the fantasy, and other times you can't. And reality arts, in my opinion, they start to fuck up and leave reality when they start trying to make them entertainment. When they start trying to make it look good to the audience. When what I have found, especially in the grappling arts, what is now, thanks to Hickson, labeled as the invisible aspects, is something that you cannot see. You can only feel it often, right? It can't even be translated very well in instructional. Right? It's like when you're showing a grip, that two-dimensional moving image you're looking at on your screen is almost tricks you into thinking you're viewing reality in a strange way, right? In the same way that watching a flying back spin kick in slow-mo in an action movie tricks you in. And so it's like there's where the line starts blurring. And it's like in the olden days, I couldn't have explained why, but I remember almost feeling sad when UFC 1 happened. Because at the time I'm a purple belt, and it was like you had a secret that you knew the other arts had and wouldn't even try because it looked so ineffective. And it looked so weird having another man in between your legs. And so it was kind of cool. It's like it was the magic for a few years was hiding in plain sight. And once the cat was out of the bag, I think it's been a blessing and a curse. I mean, clearly I would not have a job that pays me to instruct this had it not been for that cat coming out of the bag. I would be cloistered up and hide my secret until I died. Maybe if I was lucky, pass it on to my kids. And in the early days, it was like, and I won't say any of the old little stories, but initially when you came to Horian's garage, you were kind of screened. Whether you were there to fight, whether you were there to learn the moves so you could later challenge them, or were you going to join it? And I brought in a lot of guys. And some of the guys' egos could not join it. From the Jeet Kune Do world, some of them were in the Aikido world, and others embraced it. And I would say the percentage in the early days that embraced it was smaller than it is now. Right? And it was a much more, especially to the American mindset, a more aggressive, challenging, patriarchal honor cultural shift you had to make and yield. You had to yield your ego, and if you were macho, that meant your manliness. Which I just found as an amateur anthropologist a fascinating thing, watching the two cultures, the similarities, the differences in how they blended and clashed. You know, the other thing I always like to say back then, as a guy that as a kid did karate, kung fu, then did high school wrestling, then did some Western hands-only boxing, then found Muay Thai, then gravitated back into Kali and Eskrima, and left when Silat was starting to entrench the Jeet Kune Do world. And Silat is what I would call Indonesian Aikido. At that time, I just so happened to have found Jiu-Jitsu. And it just so happened to be, I believe, 6 months or 5 months after my one and only pro Muay Thai fight, which I won, but hurt really, really bad. And I could hear the wisdom of my grandfather, who is a boxer. I could hear my dad more, that boxing is one of those things that's fun to do as a hobby, but not as a way of life. Being hit in the head is not a good thing. And I was like say, I've been knocked out thrice. None of them in an actual match. 2 of them in the street and 1 in training. And in some ways, like, I don't even know if this even exists. Who knows? I might wake up and this last 20 years is a dream, and I'm in a coma, and I've just opened my eyes, and I was rescued off the asphalt after being knocked out. Who knows, right? I mean, who really knows, right? But I'm going to assume that I'm now existing in a reality. I'm a dreamer, and I always have been. I'm an artist. And as I re-embraced art about 10 years ago, I've re-entered what I call art brain. Art brain is this kind of strange, murky place where lefts become rights, rights become lefts. You're looking for what is not seen always in contrast with what is seen. And when I go in art mode, it's almost like I'm a child again. And my dreams, like I was thinking, I had this most bizarre dream last night where in the dream I'm on a flight because I'm always on planes and stuff. And I'm in this kind of lounge area. And recently I flew live a flat, which is, like such luxury, and then you go back into coach, and in my dream there's a news reporter whom I like, but then I find out that she's not really nice in my dream, and I'm kind of thinking, should I ask her to take a picture? And then I'm like, no, because then people will assume an ideology from me. And like my dreams are constantly filled with what I would call moral and ethical analysis of human interaction, both on an interpersonal level, a group, a tribal level, and the larger tribe, because I believe that we right now are in very precarious times. Very precarious. It's like I can't remember which general said when asked, after World War II, what will World War III be like? And his response was, I don't know, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. Because we've kind of reached that point. In my opinion, I think, based on facts, I think that we humans now are capable of destroying the earth and life as we know it, at least for a really long time. As bad as an asteroid impact in the Jurassic period, right? Or Triassic period, whenever that was. So, the reason why I said all that is because I want to rally it back into martial arts. And Matt and I, of SBG, I always like to say, Matt and I agree probably on 90% of almost everything. But the 10%, we have great arguments over and debates. And one of them for the last 20 years is how important is it that we show people reality arts? And as much as I love the Gracie challenge and Matt's, in essence, it's a challenge. It's a slap in the face. It's a Sam Harris Hitchens approach to religion. I appreciate them, even though I don't agree that that's necessarily my path, right? And because I think that it's almost like the stakes in this seem so low to me. But then in this whole other way, in essence, I'm going to use the word spiritually as being the opposite of materially. Spiritually, the stakes are very high, right? of knowing what is a truth. Being able to separate what is obviously sheer, fantastical, magical, self-deceptive thinking from an objective, reality-based truth. And I'm already not even agreeing with what I'm saying here, oddly enough. Because I think truth is a trap. I think once you think you know, you're trapped in ignorance, because it causes our binary brains then to subconsciously ignore or quickly, and obviously I've done all the talking here.
No, that's how it's supposed to be. I mean, I want to bathe in the way you think and to get your life perspective.
Tomorrow, I won't even agree with anything I said. I won't. I could bash on religion and literally an hour afterwards find validity in it.
I have two questions. Maybe you can choose one which you feel more inspired about. So one question is, what jiu-jitsu is for you? What drives you to train and keep on training all the time? I mean, you've been doing this forever.
You know, my simple answer, which would most sum up a long, boring speech, would be, I train because I can't not train. There's no... I mean, I could come up with the logical reasons, with the epistemological... The bottom line is, I just really find that when I roll, it puts me in the place that I think people who get really into meditation say they get to. I don't know, because I've never really experienced that. I'm too fucking ADD. I can watch my thoughts and then watch me watching the thoughts and then wonder about who's watching the watcher watching the thoughts. I can't shut it up. And then people will say, oh, that's okay, you gotta work in this. I find this to be a much easier way to get what I think they're trying to say they're doing.
It definitely makes sense. I feel the same way. I mean, I did meditate in the past, but jiu-jitsu also brings me in a state where kind of life starts to make sense, or life feels good when I do jiu-jitsu. So I think it's definitely...
What about Aikido? I want to hear about Aikido.
Sure.
Oh, but before I even say, and I wish he were here, but he didn't make it. One of my black belts, he's known as our wrist lock master.
Okay.
And you could be on his back or mounting him, and you feel like you are fending off wrist attacks. And he has a classical background and a black belt in this. And I have found that the philosophy of Aikido is the best philosophy of martial arts that I've come across thus far. It's the application, the dogma, the hierarchical structure that fucks it up. Now, I'm going to go back, because here I am blabbing, overwhelming the conversation. But one of the things that I found fascinating in the early days, the classical martial arts are structured like a pyramid, both consciously and subconsciously. We come in and we bow to a human at the top of the pyramid, and they're almost viewed as a god. And that structure, which is a very natural anthropological but tribal structure, but democracy is highly unnatural in a way.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say unnatural because everything. A rarer variant, especially in human history, very recent rare variant, republic democracy. But there's that hierarchy of the classical arts. Then there is the wrestling gym model, which you could almost like metaphorically say as the socialist model. There's a coach who's paid by the state, in essence, who is also the math instructor, or he does PE, but he is the wrestling book coach, and he is an ex-college, almost Olympic guy. And then that structure is not the same. The coach isn't bowed to. It's more of an even thing. Then you have the almost libertarian, laissez-faire boxing gym model, where it's a guy who has a gym, but trainers rent space and guys rent lockers, and everybody is after their $1 million baby. And that's that like pure capitalist laissez-faire. So it's almost like the classical arts are this totalitarian, either far right or extreme leftist model of hierarchical structure. Then you have this like weird wrestling kind of blend area. Then you have this laissez-faire capitalist model. And again, none of these are entirely accurate. And you could come up with examples within each and say, well, wait a minute, the classical arts are pure laissez-faire, and they are that too, right? And in this current climate of social media and shallow arguments in comment threads, I think we really lose the shades of gray. So I would say, as an instructor, as an artist, and I don't even remember your fucking question, that is kind of like what I am trying my best to do, often in a medium that is impossible to do it, which is kind of like art. How do you paint, whether it's on a computer or canvas, a two-dimensional representation of the three-dimensional world? You can't. What you can do is give visual clues to get the viewer's brain to maybe see something else. I don't remember your question, but
it doesn't matter. It's not about the question. For me, it's about the conversation. But so when you're saying this and comparing the different types of approaches or atmospheres that martial arts create, this is something I'm very fond of in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. That you mentioned in the traditional martial arts world, there's the bowing, and you have to respect the teacher no matter. It's like no matter.
It's unquestioning.
Right, exactly.
Respect isn't bad, but it seems to be an unquestioning respect.
Right.
Almost a Hail Hitler
Right, exactly.
Respect on the extreme right. Or don't say anything bad about Joseph Stalin on the extreme left, which does meet.
Yeah.
Which is why people often on the right will say Nazism's social leftist stuff. And on the extreme left, you say Stalin was an ultra-conservative, hated the modern and the new. So that's right, because they meet. But anyways, keep at.
But for me, what I really enjoy in Jiu-Jitsu is that the coach. I never experienced that you're forced to bow or respect the coach, but the respect is just organic.
It's organic.
Right.
Yes.
Nobody demands you to show respect, but it's just the power the instructor holds, and just knowing that
right.
person could kill you. Like I was rolling today with you, and I was like, you would trap me so bad. I would be like, well, you could kill me, and I could do nothing. And there's that power, but it's also nice that, again, it's what I experienced. I haven't met all the instructors or anything, but the instructor himself, again, does not put himself up above on a pedestal. Usually the coaches I meet, including yourself, chill, open, communicative. There's no clear demand of structure or rules, or nobody's boxed in, but still the respect for the coach just naturally happens.
I really enjoyed, I don't remember what it's called, but you were speaking about how this recent journey of yours has enabled you to let go of a lot of insecurities, fears, and I observed when I introduced you to Chi, a black belt, but Tibetan arts background, and right away he grabs you, you didn't have that fear, even though you knew he's a black belt who could probably kill you.
For sure.
But because I think what we fear more than anything is the unknown and shame. Those are our two human greatest things. That's why it's scary to compete in public. Because we have a primal fear of public shame. We're tribal animals. And a tribe can shame you very easily. Either the larger tribe or auxiliary tribes. If you are publicly shamed, then the auxiliary tribe in which you could possibly join is now aware of that. And then you are outcast. And that is so powerful. It's almost more powerful than the fear of being speared in the neck.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
Right? And we fear the unknown. Right?
So for sure.
When you have no idea what will happen when the guy grabs you, it becomes an impossible to stop biochemical fear reaction. And this, you get to dive right into it with minimal amount of injuries. Even MMA sparring, you can get minimal amount of injuries if you have good leadership and coaching, right? And SEG is excellent at taking all these various reality arts, having a structure to where the least amount of injury happens with the maximum amount of gain. They do awesome at that, right? And I always will say, in that, Matt has done a very good leadership structure of that, which often appears like a pyramid, depending on your vantage point. And even the wrestling room is still a pyramid. The coach is still coach, right? And even the laissez-faire, pure free market boxing gym is a pyramid. Because there's an owner who can say you're out of the gym, right? We cannot escape any model or ideology 100% because this is who we are, where we are, what we do.
I agree. For me, maybe one difference between those models, which is significant, is again, I keep my mind just works that way. I keep looking back at my past, the traditional martial arts, and what I'm learning and experiencing in this realm, and that the pyramid does exist for sure in all levels, but
Chi, come here. But keep talking.
Like my point now.
Chi, come here. Don't forget your point.
I'll try to get it back.
Stay mission-oriented.
But
mental jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
I fucked you up. Distraction.
Wait, so I think
in the classical arts, in Aikido.
Yeah. Did I go?
Go.
Okay. So the pyramid is in the Aikido world that I was in. The pyramid was for sure. It was very clear and was like very almost enforced. And it would, in my experience, would bring bad results, because the higher you climb the ladder, the more people would tend to become...
In Aikido, like communism, the pyramid is disguised in altruism.
Right, yeah, exactly, right. But what I like a lot in Jiu-Jitsu, like even today, rolling here, the pyramid is somewhat there as well, but it's, first of all, it's not enforced again, it's organic, but also we're trying to choke each other, where we could kill each other at any time, but there's a lot of, from what I experienced, there's a lot of humility, there's a lot of friendliness. It's like, it makes people better, and it's kind of an interesting contrast that the grim is there, and the intensity is there, and we are practicing a killing art, but it makes people nicer and more humble, and yeah, I love that.
I think you are correct, and like everything to a point.
Sure, yeah.
But just like how culturally we worship the great athlete, and sometimes a great artist, especially in entertainment arts, I'm not sure that ethics and morality are intrinsic to reality-based martial arts. I think it can be a vehicle if you already have the proper, we'll call it ethical alignment. But I think if you don't,
Right, yeah.
and I think we can deceive ourselves into thinking we have the proper ethical alignment and learn the most efficient ways to overcome fear of combat and become Nazi stormtroopers at the same time. I think we can deceive ourselves with the same altruistic bullshit that comes with the Aikido pyramid by starting to believe that we have found, because we found truth in combat, now we know moral and ethical truth as well. I think it's a trap. But even though I think it's also a vehicle. So no one can claim that, oh, he doesn't think jiu-jitsu can help you. No, it can.
But it's not like a fact.
No. But then again, here's where I sound like some Frankfurt School postmodernist, which I think has a lot of validity in their deconstruction approach to thoughts, letters, philosophies, epistemologies. I think it's something that once you go through enough pondering of life that you have to look at, is you have to re-question yourself once again. Maybe I'm wrong, which would be the quote-unquote scientific method, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of the famous Socrates moment of, I know that I don't know, and that was his ultimate knowledge. Like, he's appears to be wiser than everyone, but the conclusion he comes to, like, the difference between him and everyone else is he knows that he doesn't know. It's like pinnacle of wisdom. It's not about me knowing and that's why I'm wise and better, but it's me knowing that I don't know so much, and yeah, it can always change.
So you studied physical therapy at UCLA?
All right, I've talked way too much, as usual, and I'm going to hand this thing over to Chi, because I really want you to have this the talk with. But Chi he came to me from Travis of SBG, Montana. But Travis kind of warned me, in essence, like, he's a beast, he's really strong, really athletic, and is a Tibetan martial artist background guy. And if you know anything about the Tibetan warrior mindset, it's pretty fucking hardcore. Is that okay if I say it?
Yeah, I think it needs to be said sometimes.
Okay, I'm going to let
Thanks, Chris.
you guys have a chat.
Yeah.
Bye, and fuck you very much.
Thank you.